If you had unplanted acres this year, the important thing isn't to dwell on, hey, what could have been this year. Let's just focus on what can we do next year to make that crop ground fantastic.
First of all, if there's an unplanted field, there's only one reason why. It was too wet. It was too wet when you wanted to get out there. Well, there's one fix for that. It's called drainage tile. It's something that's been done for hundreds of years around the world. It's been proven safe and environmentally friendly. All those answers have been they've been out there and available for a long time. The question is, why haven't you done it so far? Why haven't you put tile in? Well, if you haven't done any drainage tile work on your farm, chances are you've had some prevent plant fields over the years. Look at those fields, inspect them in terms of, well, what could be done for drainage? Find the elevations out on those fields, and I know there are many fields that you say, I just don't know where I'm going to go. But it's surprising how many of these fields that have been unplanted have a good place to drain the water to. And if you can get that water moving in the right direction, your fields dry out so much quicker. Look around you. Look at other fields in the neighborhood that did get planted. In most cases, they've got some good drainage, good subsurface drainage going on in the fields. So you've got neighbors that you can lean on as well to say, okay, how did you get it done? What kind of spacing did you use? And those types of things, because drainage tile is something that's made a huge difference on our farm. We've seen it the last couple of years with fields right next to ours that didn't get planted, where we've got drain tile in the ground. We were in there on time in most cases.
Not only that, but the crop is fantastic. And here's the big thing we want you to think about. It's not getting rid of the surface water. I'm not as worried about that. What I am worried about is the water table below. If the water table's too high, it literally kills your soil. The number one thing you've got to think about going from this year unplanted to next year planted is soil life, soil health. How do you improve that? Number one, all the microbes have to have oxygen. They have to have air in that soil. If they don't have air, they're dead. So that's the number one reason why you've got to do this. If you have the soil life going for you, you're well on your way. Now, a lot of people say, well, put cover crops out there. And yes, that certainly can help. You want something growing out there for the rest of this season, even if it's just to get anything growing, that's great. But having the drainage is a real big key.
Let's talk about cover crops for just a minute, because honestly in 2020 we had a lot of issues out in fields where growers had put cover crops out for the first time or maybe the second time they'd ever done it, and they tried something a little different. Maybe they got the cover crop in earlier in 2019 than they had before. Now they had much more growth than they were used to working with. Other farmers let that cover crop live all through the winter, and they had green cover crop they were going to plant in for the first time. Now, if you've been using a cover crop for many years, you already understand how to handle this, but if you're a newbie, don't take so many chances, and at least don't do it on a big amount of acres, because we saw a lot of challenges dealing with all that residue in the spring. So make sure if it's your first time using a cover crop, talk to others in your area who have been doing it for years, that are doing the same rotation and practice as you are, to see what tricks they have to make it work.
In the upper Midwest, we would tell you, put that cover crop in, that's fine, then terminate it this fall at some point. Terminate it either with herbicide or with tillage. Tillage is probably the biggest question we have coming out of unplanted acres. We're big believers in using tillage sporadically and in the right places. We did a lot of tillage on our farm this past year too, after being really wet. Sometimes you just have to clean up those ruts and get the ground ready to go. So you'll just have to use a little bit of judgment in your area whether or not the tillage fits for you. But we would just tell you, make sure that cover crop is terminated this fall to have the best chance to plant early in the spring.
The other thing would be fertility. That's another big issue. We get a lot of questions about, and if you're going to do the tillage, hey, great opportunity, get that fertility out in front, till it into the ground and be ready to go for next year. I just look at unplanted acres as, yep, it was very unfortunate that happened this year. Let's get set up to be successful for next year. And if you can get fertility work done on this ground when it's dry later on in the summer or early fall, that's fantastic, because now it's another job you don't have to do next spring.
And for me, I would wait absolutely until late in the fall. There's no way I'd do it in the summer, because we're thinking about fertility for next year, and I would look at P and K, zinc, copper, the things that don't leach. Things like sulfur, boron, nitrogen, I get it if you want to wait till next spring, because those could disappear if you have flooding once again.
If you had unplanted acres this year, it's a great opportunity to take care of those acres and set you up for success with your next crop. Another thing that'll set you up for success is keeping our weed of the week out of your field. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.